Let's go ahead and open up our meeting here. Okay. So we're trying something new today. We are going to do our Endless Beautiful workshop where we use our sound-based creativity prompt, but we want to utilize the internet and all the wonders of that. So we've been kind of inspired by all of this stuff going on with online education and people coming up with all of these different solutions. So we're actually going to try that with a Zoom call today. And if you guys are willing and you want to give it a shot for this inaugural run, please join the Zoom call and we will run the workshop like we would face to face, or at least some version that's closer to that than what we have done online in the past. Carolyn, so how does an Endless Beautiful workshop work normally?
Well, it's almost hard to remember what normal is in these uncertain and unusual times, but Endless Beautiful workshops are all about listening, creating, and sharing. So Lucas and I, over the last few years, have collected hundreds and hundreds, maybe up into the thousands now, of these different sounds. And we've compiled them and they're available in the Endless Beautiful engine on our website. And in our workshops, we turn on that engine. We hear some random sounds appear in that creative space, and we use those sounds to simultaneously listen and do some kind of creative act. We're writers, so we'll be doing some writing, but you're welcome to do any kind of creative work of your choice.
Absolutely. We have worked with musicians before in the past.
All kinds of visual artists, from people working in digital spaces or on, pen and paper, watercolor, acrylics, really. What other kinds of modes have people worked in?
So we've had people just kind of jot notes down. So we've done kind of more talking about like experiences and things like that, and just kind of some memories and kind of digging into that. And that's works equally as well. That's an interesting way of doing it. I've used it. I'm a teacher. I've used it in the classroom, teaching language skills. Yeah, I mean it's really versatile, and kind of there's the expressive portion of it where you do your expressive piece, and then there's also a really important part, which is the sharing. That's a critical part, and that's the thing that a lot of folks get hung up about, is the sharing, because they might think that, oh, well, this needs to be like some sort of polished piece of art or some sort of polished result. And that's not what we're after. We're really not after that. We are looking for kind of a conversation about the process. We're looking for a conversation about kind of where that experience comes from. And this is what we're doing, and what the Endless Beautiful workshop is doing, is it's working as a catalyst to kind of engage these different senses and to dig into these different experiences. And the conversations and the sharing, that's really where that's at. And it could be absolute nonsense. I mean, it's really about tangents. It's like about kind of going on tangents and exploration. At least that's how I feel about it.
Oh, I agree completely. I think when we say share, we mean literally no editing. Just tell us about what happened while you listened and created whatever it was you created. So we have a ton of practice, and he's really talented and might come up with like a legitimate short story, but you're welcome to share anything and everything. And the conversations that come out of that sharing process may end up having nothing to do with that initial thought you expressed when using the Endless Beautiful engine. It's about us creating that meaning together and just seeing what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, like you're saying, that's what's really exciting for me is just that exploration and the adventure of working on this together. Absolutely. And I think now in these weird times with social distancing and work disruptions and school disruptions, I know I've been struggling to make a new routine and find ways of continuing to have normal stuff in my life. And I'm really grateful to Lucas that he can set all this up at home and do this remotely, and that those of you who are joining us tonight are willing to be here with us in spirit and virtually. And I think that's really important. I know it means a lot to me and is a big deal in terms of my mental health and my morale these days.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's important, and I think that when we're thinking about all these other health concerns right now, and that's really what's kind of in the headlines, it can be easy to think like, okay, well, what about my mental health? What about just what's going on, and what are some ways that you can feel better? And this is something that I use definitely when I'm feeling maybe a little down, or I'm just feeling like I feel like I'm starting to pull inward a little bit. This is a way for me to just kind of push against that in a creative way. And as a prompt, many times I'll just sit down and not necessarily, maybe not even be in the right mindset to necessarily sit down and start writing something. This gives me that kind of inroad that is really valuable for me.
Another thing on my mind is with so much of our attention in our daily conversations and the media we consume focused on this pandemic and these really unsettling circumstances. And, you don't need to hear me say it all over again. In this creative time this evening, you are welcome to express thoughts and feelings and whatever you want related to the present moment and all the complicated circumstances we're in now. But you don't have to. Mm-hmm. If you want to talk about anything else, that is absolutely welcome also.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of what we're after too with the sounds, because you're not really sure where that's going to take you.
Right. You can allow that to transport you in surprising ways.
Mm-hmm. And I guess that's one of the things too. We have taken this to maybe some more sensitive environments, maybe some more emotionally kind of charged environments where participants, they're unloading a little bit. It's part of a catharsis, part of a process, and this is not. It's capable of handling that and being a means for that to happen, but it's not centered on that. So it's not like you have to show up with some sort of thing to unload. Like, you could just be a human being. It's about just, we're all in this together, right? So we all kind of have our ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, no emotional or physical labor required ahead of time.
Right. So, I mean, if whatever comes up, that's really that's kind of in the spirit of it, is just embracing that as it comes.
Well, maybe one other thought there is maybe we should take a moment together to kind of imagine a container for tonight's experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Would you kind of guide us through that idea?
Sure. So during our workshops, we have like a box that we actually have with like our logo, the peacock, and it's a physical box, and we tell participants that what we come up with, we actually, and whatever we share, and maybe some things might feel resolved, maybe not. At the end of the workshop, it goes into that box and we close it up, and you don't need to just kind of take these unresolved emotions or thoughts. It's helpful to have kind of these parameters for this, and to know that you have kind of these measures in place, where you perhaps you are willing to kind of dig for some things, and to explore some emotions that you might not necessarily. Does that work for you in terms of the container?
I think you explained that really well, and all I'd like to add is if having those parameters feels useful to you, I would invite you to really imagine that container and know that you can input and leave things there if you want. You're allowed to take them out of that box as you wish, but that structure exists for you to use. Another way of thinking about it is, okay, I'm going to spend this time visiting with this creative spirit, and then I'm going to end my visit.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's kind of how I feel when I do it. It's kind of like a fresh experience every time that I go in, and then I just hit reset. And so, well, Carolyn, I know you've been like, what do you mean you don't care if you finish that story, or if you do this and that? And it's just, that's my relationship with it. I like going out for those little sprints. Sometimes I come back to the stories. But should we start or introduce at least the viewers and the listeners to our EB engine?
Yes.
Okay. So
definitely.
What is the EB engine?
So the EB engine is the driving force that lives on our website, where you can go to our website, which Lucas will pull up in a moment, and click on the play button on the EB engine. It will roar to life and begin playing a random selection of those collected sounds. So in a few moments, we'll hear those sounds play. You can use the built-in timer in our website to start and stop when you're, well, we'll be controlling that now, but you're welcome to do this on your own time. And that engine is always there. It's 24/7. You can use it at any time, and it is constantly using that random assortment of our sounds.
Yep. So it just randomly plays the sounds that we have on the engine, and it's meant to be there, ready for you to use for whenever it works for you. And we don't know what's going to be on there, or we don't know in what order it's going to play, and that really presents some really interesting kind of relationships between the sounds. And
it will be as new to us as it is for you.
All right. Well, feel free to drop in on the Zoom call that we have. Hey, this is brand new, so we're testing this out. We have the invite in the Facebook live posts that we're running right now. If you're listening to the podcast, we are going to do these on Wednesday evenings, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Look for we'll put something up on the webpage, but go to our Facebook. That's probably the easiest. We're going to do a live stream, and we'll have the invites on there as well. And the idea is that you can just drop in, and we want to hear, because there's the sharing portion. So Carolyn and I are going to share tonight what we come up with, but also we want to hear from you. What are you coming up with?
He has to hear from me all the time. He wants to hear from someone else.
Right. So and maybe that's a drawing. That's a great thing about Zoom. We can see it in real time. Maybe it's music or whatever. Hey, I came up with this riff, or I just had this thought. I make a bulleted list. I don't know. All of that is valid.
A dance, a recipe,
right?
And really whatever you want.
And it just kind of comes together, and it coalesces, and we actually create this experience. Is its own kind of creation, and it's some kind of artifact, I guess, that is left behind from that. So feel free to join that Zoom call. And
we really, really want you there.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just come as you are.
Right. Absolutely. So let's go ahead, and we are going to we're going to run this engine. So I'm going on the website here, endlessbeautiful.com, and we've got the play button for the EB engine. We've got the start and the stop. How long do we want to go, Carolyn?
I think we should go for 7 minutes.
Okay, so we're going to go for 7 minutes. I'm going to keep this screen on so we can watch the timer. Okay. And I'm just going to hit the play button. And we are going to, I think, Carolyn, you're going to write?
I am.
Okay. I'm going to write, and we're going to share what we came up with.
We will see you and hear from you in 7 minutes.
All right.
Just saying this. Sweet dreams till sunbeams find you. Sweet dreams that leave all worries behind you. And in your dreams, whatever they be, dream a little dream of me. It's my favorite song.
Can you believe that that was 7 minutes?
It very much caught me by surprise. We're 21.46 seconds overboard.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I wasn't even,
yeah.
I didn't expect it at all. Wow. That's always something that really surprises me about this, is just how quickly time goes. It's really kind of amazing. So let me get our...
And I do think there's a very strong difference between 7 minutes waiting in silence and 7 minutes doing something and hearing things all the while. I think that experience, time, I don't know, time doesn't make sense. Hardly ever. That makes me really uncomfortable as a scientist. I feel like time is supposed to be something that we can bank on as like a dependable variable, and here it is being all subjective.
Well, will you share what you came up with, Carolyn?
Okay.
Start us off.
Right now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm happy to. She has a laugh like a splash of a surprise bucket of water at your graduation party. A delight and a bonus earned. Don't get cross. Open your arms and your lips. That small crinkle is someone's favorite sound. Imagine her on a Grecian beach, longing and yet content, droplets coalescing from skin to sand, asleep. At the turn of the tide, the crabs will bubble up from the surface, chewing their way through life like everyone else. Take comfort, there's enough room for you both. I fixate sometimes on this elusive reality, a world of parts, always and never apart. In other words, always connected, even so.
Can you
try to make some sense out of it?
I mean, so I'm imagining a woman.
Okay. Yeah, I think I referred to a she and a her and a...
Right.
Yep.
I'm imagining maybe maybe not a hard woman, but a woman that isn't entirely open 100%. I guess you were describing kind of these details. Well, it says don't get cross, open your arms and your lips.
Okay. Yeah, this is fun for me to hear kind of what you're imagining based off of these words.
So I guess I was imagining like somebody like, like, hey, don't be upset or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I mean I think I moved through a couple different things I was imagining, so I don't think this totally works in a unified way because I was, just going along and associating with the sounds. Because I was imagining someone like very lithe and carefree and like I guess it came across as very hard, and
that's what I was imagining. Sure. Well, what kind of got you there? What kind of initiated this?
Yeah, well, it happened in a way that would make zero logical sense to anyone who doesn't live in my brain. Mm-hmm. But that initial idea of the laugh, like a splash, was because in the very first few seconds we heard, I heard some water sloshing around, and I thought of like someone dumping a bucket of water on somebody else. And then we were hearing kind of a very terse, like some kind of guard figure, like stay on the sidewalk, do not cross. And I really liked that. Like there was some real firmness in that tone.
I mean, I remember where we were when we recorded that.
So to get from the moment where somebody dumped the bucket of water, I was thinking about like, okay, this person who just got dumped on could be mad about it, or they could open up and open your lips. I was thinking like, okay, they're going to laugh too. And that reminded me of a friend of mine who said that there's a really tiny little sound of like someone's lips parting when they smile. And that is her favorite sound in the entire world.
Wow.
And I remember her telling me a story about some travels through Europe years ago and camping on a beach in Greece. And I was just somehow brought to that moment. And then we heard some kind of bubbling noise, and that made me think of little sand crabs that come up and they form like a little donut shape in the sand, near their burrow, and they just kind of go around and around, going through all the little particles in the sand and chewing them up and getting some nutrients out of there. And I think this is a theme I keep coming back to in Endless Beautiful, is there's something really delicious about trying to connect these different sounds and ideas and associations, and it frequently reminds me of how connected everything can be, and yet things are there's some separateness remaining no matter what.
Sure.
Like and I guess that's what I started coming down to at the end about a world of parts. In other words, always connected. So I think that's often like a place I arrive at after an Endless Beautiful session, is this idea of things being connected and yet being made of parts, and yet being greater than the sum of the parts.
Sure. Absolutely. I think those are excellent observations.
Thanks. I often don't know what to make of it.
Yeah.
Well, and okay. There's a that is okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something I really like about this process is being okay with whatever just happened.
Absolutely.
Well, I think I think you were talking about this before, about how we frequently judge ourselves and are uncomfortable speaking freely or sharing our inside thoughts, and I think this is a good practice for me, and I hope for others participating to, I don't know, put some of that out there and see what happens.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I have is a train wreck.
Well,
I'm not even sure what.
Let's hear it.
And I'm way more okay with it being a train wreck and just.
And
being
it's not about like celebrating mediocrity and
right.
train wrecks. It's about like let's see.
Yeah, let's see. Let's figure it out together, right? I think that's what it's really about.
Well, and I think there's another like myth of creative people of like that you just produce these, I carved until I set the angel free. And I was like, no, there was like a bunch of pieces and dust and like frustration in that process too. It didn't just, and maybe there are like genius, amazing people that can just produce complete and marvelous works.
Sure.
But for the rest of us, it's fun to try and see what else happens.
Absolutely.
You can carve and loose a little gremlin.
This might be a gremlin, or at least a pack of gremlins. All right. Just kind of a little scene here. This is what I frequently end up with, is a little bit of a vignette, a little scene. He could never get these things on right. Kids around him were already swinging around posts and swooping under benches. They were young, too. How the hell could these kids be so good at roller skating? Wasn't today's youth supposed to be rollerblading, or at least playing Fortnite? A gritty middle-aged woman behind the pizza counter yelled at the kids to slow down. "No skating in the food court," yelled the woman. It seemed absurd. What were these kids supposed to do if they wanted something to eat? "Hey, you heard me," yelled the woman. She was obviously a mother herself and fearless in the face of this mob of kids because of it. Bring, bring, bring. An arcade machine blared off behind him. One of the kids he was supposed to chaperone had hit the jackpot. He turned around to find three boys pulling out tickets and glowing in the light. And that's what I got.
But did we hear the same things?
Yeah, isn't that crazy? You know how you just arrive at in an entirely different place when you're listening to these sounds, and it's very much because of your experiences. So Endless Beautiful, I mean, it's just phenomenal for activating kind of these experiences and allowing you to explore them. That's feedback. I mean, I've had folks that were recalling stuff from back like during World War II, that they said they hadn't thought about for decades. And it's really just remarkable. And this was one of those where there was like the sound of wheels, some sort of spinning wheels or something. At least that's what it reminded me of. And it made me think of when we were kids, we would go to a place, I think it was called Skate City out in Wisconsin
we had
Rapids.
Interstate 91.
And this was a big thing for middle school kids. I don't know. I maybe we went when we were in high school, but I think it was a middle school activity. And it was the whole class would go out there. You would take the bus, and that was your day. I don't know if it was like at the end of the year or whatever, but you would hang out at Skate City. And
was there like a rink or like
it was a rink. There were arcade machines around, kind of the perimeter. So, of course, I was absolutely loving playing the arcade machines.
Did you even skate, or did you just go straight to the arcade games?
I skated, but I was terrible at it. Like I would always, I would.
But you were an athletic kid. Why couldn't you roller skate?
Okay, maybe I was somewhat athletic, maybe like in like strength or whatever, but in terms of balance, not so much, and definitely not like agility or whatever. And so like I would have friends that would be going out, and I remember like you'd skate around, and the good kids would be able to go really fast around the perimeter, and as you're going faster, you're pushing yourself out, and that would be the thing that would get me, or I wouldn't be able to stop. I wouldn't know how to stop, and I would just kind of
would you just wipe out?
Yeah, I would just smash into the wall. Like that was my way of stopping. And this just really, it brought back memories of being there, and like the ticket machines, pizza. They would always have pizza. And I think about like, hey, there were chaperones there. You had to watch what these kids were doing. And I mean, it's just kind of like a place, it's an environment where it's just like, I mean, everybody's just going crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt that voice of like the frustrated, kind of bored, but also overwhelmed chaperone in this vignette you just put together. Would you pop it back up onto the screen?
Sure.
But then like I felt like we moved scenes into the food court, like the kids had gotten loose into the food court. Is that kind of what were you thinking about when the mom figure comes in?
So the mom figure was definitely the woman, inspired by the stern woman, the stern voice that we heard during the recording, which was in New York City when we recorded that. And it was I don't know if she was a police officer or just some sort of a crossing guard or something like that. And yeah, she was like yelling at people, and even though they were adults, they were still being kind of butt heads about it. And she was just like not having any of it. So it was just kind of like this great moment. And yeah, so that kind of inspired that. It's like, okay, here is the true adult in the room that, is used to this, and isn't fazed by it, and will absolutely call these kids out. And I guess one of the things that I was thinking about too is kind of the absurdity of like, okay, you've got these kids hyped up, and then you're trying to impose these rules where they can't skate in the court, the food court, and they're just kind of like, what are they supposed to do? Like,
Just be ruled by mayhem.
So yeah, like it was really cool to think about that. So when you were in school, did you go on those
I don't
trips?
think we went as like a school group, but it was like a very popular birthday party place.
No.
Yeah, it definitely was kind of a like 5th to 8th grade
Yeah.
was the time when going to Interstate 91 was really cool.
But
there was a laser tag, and that was popular with high school.
We didn't have a laser tag. I don't think we had one around the area. I think you'd have to go to like Wisconsin Dells for laser tag. But I remember when we were kids and when you hit high school, I don't think we went when we were in high school. I think because you graduate middle school in 8th grade, and I think there was like this somber last trip.
Really?
Yes.
Of like the final journey.
The final journey. It's like you can't come
to Skate
back.
City.
Yeah, you can't come back to this. And I went some years later. I was going to.
Was it everything you remembered?
No, it wasn't. Like I just felt like a total creep.
Oh no.
Being there because it was like these kids, and I was with a friend and we were just trying to be like, oh yeah, let's check this place out or whatever. We had some time to kill. And we went there and it just, I felt like I was just like too big for everything. Like none of it was built for me. And then I felt like I was kind of getting some weird looks because I'm just this, fully grown man, not the chaperone, slightly intoxicated. Hanging out at Skate City. But yeah, definitely some good memories.
But that's a really interesting phenomenon. And I feel like that happens in other spaces, but maybe not quite to the extreme level of Skate City, but places like playgrounds and I don't know, that just, if there are times when it feels like it was a place you belonged and now you've outgrown it, or
right.
it's not meant for you anymore.
And now, do you think that there are definitely memories of those places when I was a child, and you're
did you feel it coming on that last 8th grade trip?
Yeah, we knew
I will not belong here anymore.
All the kids, but it was almost like I think there was a little bit of like, oh yeah, we finally made it. But then also there was definitely a collective kind of feeling of like, oh, but we can't come back here.
Yeah.
Like what are we going to do? Now, that's kind of interesting for that. And maybe there were some places when you were in high school. Do you feel like you have encountered any of those as an adult after leaving high school? Do you feel that same way after you're like, let's say 20 years old or something? Do you feel like you have outgrown a place, or maybe you don't necessarily belong in that place anymore?
A place that I did feel like I belonged as an adult that I no longer belong?
Like were there any of those kind of transitional places that maybe you don't feel that same way when you return to them?
I don't think it happens in the exact same way, but I think there's a similar situation, like going back to my undergraduate college campus of like, here's a place that was so definitive in my life, and I still am allowed to go there. It's still normal for me to visit there,
right?
And go to an alumni event or something. But it's a time in my life that's 5 years in the past now. or more than that. Yeah, I guess almost 6-7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just it doesn't mean the same thing to me as it did while I was really a member actively in that place.
Sure.
Is
I
that
mean,
kind of, do you feel the same
yeah.
way? I guess
Yeah,
that's
I feel that
my
way.
most significant period of adult life in a place. And maybe that will happen in my graduate school community
Mm-hmm.
years from now. But
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I think culturally, like, that's a really definitive experience, the college campus.
Yeah, definitely. And I think maybe these places and these things, you know, a college campus, or even when we're talking about the roller skating place, those kind of have those. You graduate from college, right? You, and in a way, when we were kids, we graduated from the roller rink. So there kind of are like these hard.
Right, they're kind of delimited as like, this is
Right.
who this is for.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting. I would be interested to hear also if somebody kind of had it go the other way, around where, you know, you feel welcome, you feel like you belong somewhere that you didn't feel that you belonged before.
Or coming full circle, you know, that you belonged there and then you didn't for a while and then you did again. That could be really
actually,
interesting.
there's something. One of the things that I'm involved with is the Providence Clemente Veterans Initiative, and I have found that has really, you know, I was in the military. I got out trying to figure out who I was, doing, you know, my undergrad, went off to become a teacher, and I didn't necessarily know how to think about my veteranness and how those things kind of, you know, that life that I had led before, how that gelled with the new life that I was trying to make for myself. And as a result, I had kind of pushed that off, that identity off. So many people, when I lived in Providence, especially, they didn't know that I was in the military for several years, because I just didn't tell them. And becoming involved with the Clemente Veterans Initiative, I mean, it's extraordinary. And what it does is it utilizes the humanities to examine kind of different wars and all kinds of different, you know, philosophical contexts and art. And I mean, it's really amazing. And it's got instructors from the Rhode Island School of Design, URI.
What do you think made that different for you? Like, why did you feel?
Well, I think what
like you
it
belonged
did
there again.
Well, what I think it did is it allowed me to kind of expand the range in which I could think about my experience as a younger adult, as a veteran, as a Marine in Iraq. And having this much better rounded vocabulary and just a way to think about it allowed me to kind of draw new conclusions and think about it in a more kind of holistic way. And I found that to be very helpful. And because of that, I'm kind of re-engaging with the veteran community in a way that I really avoided for several years, because I just didn't necessarily know how to do it, and I was trying to figure out, you know, who I was. Well, now this has allowed me to see that, and I welcome it. I enjoy, and I'm spending time with veterans and discussing kind of these veteran-specific issues and topics much more than I ever did after I got out of the military. So that is kind of a full circle, you know, kind of coming back to it. And it's really interesting because, 10 years on, 10 years beyond me being in active duty or whatever, you're seeing it with a completely different perspective. You've got a lot of life behind you, and a lot of experience, in order to kind of adjust your lens. And I found that to be surprising. When I first engaged with it, I was like, "Oh wow, this is really different, right?" I feel really different about this. So yeah, I guess that's an example of where I've been able to kind of come full circle.
Well, maybe there's hope for you yet at
Maybe.
Skate City.
Yeah, Skate City. Maybe I'll come back to Skate City, break both of my legs.
Yeah, you have bad luck with things on wheels and skates and
it's not a good idea. Well, I think that's a good spot for us to end tonight. So let's just kind of remind our listeners, if they're listening to the podcast version of this, or viewers that are viewing the video of this on our Facebook or on our website, what's the plan? What are we going to try to do in the coming weeks here, Carolyn?
So we are going to be here at 8:00 on Wednesday evenings. We'll be doing this via Facebook and Zoom calls. And if you have other technology that you would prefer that we use or that you suggest, we're welcome to hearing those ideas. And you can always find us at endlessbeautiful.com or on our various social media pages. And we want to hear from you. We want you to be here with us doing this on Wednesdays at 8:00. And we invite you to do this and explore your creativity however you see fit.
And as you heard and you saw, I mean, the creativity was a little bit of it. And really, it's just about kind of the conversation and seeing where that goes.
And having a conversation you might not have.
There's no
otherwise.
way. There's no way.
You will not have otherwise.
Yeah, there's no way I would have been talking about Skate City. I could tell you that. But it feels good. It feels good to really.
Was it worth remembering?
Yeah, absolutely it was. And it was worth talking about some of these other things. There's no way I would have talked about that otherwise. So
I really like getting to hear these memories from you.
Yeah, and it feels great. And, you have this stuff. You earned it, right? These are things that are inside of you, and your brain is holding on to it. If it was completely useless, your brain would not hold on to it. It is holding on to it for a reason. There's some reason why this is kicking around in the back of your mind. So it's worth kind of dusting off and taking a look. And a lot of times, when I do like creative writing workshops and things like that, one of the things that I teach is teaching how to write stories based off of our experiences and using that as kind of like a kernel. And it's fascinating when you kind of take something out of the bin or whatever and you pin it up on the wall and you start to look at it and you just start to examine it with perhaps a different light, from a different angle. You find some fascinating material and fascinating kind of different details that you wouldn't necessarily see otherwise. So
and these things are yours. You can pick them up and handle them, and
I can't tell you what they are.
Do with them whatever you want. That's something really important to me about this process. Is because I struggle with that idea of these things are all here for a reason. What reason? And even if that reason isn't apparent, it's still something you can play with. Absolutely.
All right. So next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will be on. Join our Zoom call. We'll have the invite on there. We will, and in the meantime, feel free to go to endlessbeautiful.com and you can just hit play. Do this with your family. Everybody's going a little crazy. right now. They're locked away with their family.
He's a great activity to do remotely.
Yes.
That you can
do it anytime. Do it with your kids. They'll be able to kind of get that expressive energy out, and you guys can have these conversations as well. You can have, conversation. I'm not even going to say it, but something other than the thing that everybody is talking about right now. Okay. Let's go ahead. Let's finish it there. My name's Lucas Prawley.
I'm Carolyn Decker.
And this is Endless Beautiful.